Hey guys, it's Miss Damaso. Today we are coming together for our week 3 video and we're going to talk about our chapter 11 study guide because after this we're going to take our chapter 11 assessment later on this week. So just like in the past, as I kind of go over these study guides, we'll go over all the answers to them and then you know me, your test will look very similar to this study guide. So I highly suggest that you do this along with me and then we get ourselves ready for our assessment. Okay, so let's get ourselves started. So chapter 11 is all about volume of 3D figures as well as cross sections. So both of those are going to be on your assessment. So number 1. Every cross section of a sphere will be a blank. So think about a sphere as like a ball, right? A 3D ball. If I cut the sphere in half, every time I cut that sphere, looks something like this, right? If I cut that in half in any spot, it's going to give me a circle. Number 2, a cross section parallel to the base of a cone is a blank. So if you think about a cone, it looks like an ice cream cone, right? It's a circle at the bottom, goes up to a point at the top, almost like a party hat, right? So if I'm cutting one that is parallel to the base, that means in the same position, it's going to be like this. Okay, and anytime it's parallel, it's always the same shape as the base. So again, it is going to be a circle. Number 3, what 3D shape do you get when you rotate a triangle? So remember that triangle that was on my pencil and I rotated it really, really quickly. If I rotate a triangle around and around and around, I'm gonna get myself a cone, right? So it's gonna be looking like this. There's my cone. If I rotate a rectangle around and around and around, I'm gonna get a cylinder. Okay, so like a circle on the top, circle on the bottom, right? Almost looks like a can. Last one, if I rotate a circle around and around and around, I'm gonna get a sphere. Okay, so it's just gonna be a 3D ball. Number 4, list the 2D shapes you will get with a cross section that is parallel to the base for each of the following. So remember, if it is parallel to the base, it's the same shape as the base of whatever the 3D shape is. So if you think about a cylinder, it looks like a cone. Parallel to the base is gonna give you a circle. If you think about a cone, right? A cone's got the circle at the bottom, it goes up to the point. Parallel to the bottom is gonna give you a circle. If I have a rectangular prism, that means I've got a rectangle at the bottom. Prism means it's a rectangle at the top, and then it connects. Oh, that should be one like this. So parallel to the base is whatever the shape of the base is. So it's going to be a rectangle. A triangular prism, again, it's going to be the same as the base. That should give me a triangle. A rectangular pyramid. Now, pyramid just means it comes to a point. It's a rectangle at the bottom. It's still going to give me a rectangle. A square pyramid, okay, tells you again what the shape of the base is. If it's parallel to the base, it's the same shape, so it's a square. And then a cube, remember, is just a whole bunch of squares put together to make a box, so it's a square. Now, when you are doing 2D shapes for number 5, it says list the cross sections that are perpendicular. Now, perpendicular means makes a 90-degree angle, it goes straight up or straight down. Now, if you remember, if you have any type of prism, if you cut it perpendicular, the prism is always going to give you a rectangle. If you have something that is a pyramid, okay, or comes to a point, then it's going to give you a triangle. Okay, and if you can remember this, then you should be able to do all of these questions. So if I give you a cylinder, Okay, now cylinder means it's almost like a prism, right? Because it's got a circle at the bottom, a circle at the top. It's going to give me a rectangle. If I give you a cone has a circle at the bottom, it comes up to a point, so it's like a pyramid because it comes to a point, so it's going to give me a triangle. A rectangular prism, because it is a prism, is going to give me a rectangle. A triangular prism, again, doesn't matter, but because it's a prism, it's going to give you a rectangle. Okay, so we're here. A rectangular pyramid. Okay, now remember, if it's a pyramid, that means it's going to give me a triangle. And then a square pyramid, again, because it's a pyramid, if I go cut it perpendicular, I guess it really should be up a little, sorry guys. If I go perpendicular, it's going to be, again, a triangle. Okay, last one is if it's a cube, and a cube is like a prism, so it's going to give me a rectangle. Okay, so if you are cutting something parallel to the base, it's always the same shape as the base. If you're cutting it perpendicular, if it's a prism, it will be a rectangle. If it's a pyramid, it will be a triangle. Write out number 6, the volume formula for a prism, a cylinder, cone, pyramid, and a sphere. You have to know all of them. So if you have a prism, to find the volume, you're going to do the area of the base times the height, right? So the big B means area of the base. So you might have, right, like a different shape at the bottom, you have to find the whole area of. A cylinder is a type of prism. So cylinder is volume equals pi r squared times h, your height. A pyramid is similar to the prism, except I take this and I take 1/3 of it. So it's volume equals 1/3 area of the base times the height. A cone is similar to the cylinder, but it's 1/3 of it. So its volume equals 1/3 pi r squared h. Last one is a sphere. And to find my volume of a sphere, I'm going to do volume equals 4/3 pi r cubed. Okay, all of those are definitely some theorems that you need to, or excuse me, not theorems, some volume formulas that you must know to do well on this assessment. Okay. Number 7, we're going to find the volume of the prism. We're going to round to the nearest 10th if necessary. Okay, so because it is a prism, my formula is volume equals area of the base times the height. Now, my base is the ones that are parallel to each other, so it's a triangle. To find the area of a triangle, I have to do base times height divided by 2. So I always look for where the 90 degrees is. My base is 1. My height of the triangle is 2. And then I divide that by 2. So I end up just getting 2 times 1 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. The height of the entire prism is 17. Now I'm going to take my information, I'm going to plug it into that volume formula. So my volume formula is my big B, which is 1, times my height, which is 17. And 1 times 17 gives me 17. So my volume is 17 meters cubed. And it's cubed because it is a volume. A volume is always going to be cubed. All right, easy enough. Easy enough. Next one, number 8. Find the height of the cylinder. So I give you the volume, I give you the radius. I'm asking you to find the height. So I know the volume of a cylinder is pi r squared h. I'm going to plug in all the information that I know. I know that the volume is 271.4. I know pi. I know my radius is 6. And I'm going to square that, and then I'm going to multiply times h. Now all I'm doing is I'm trying to solve it and get h by itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply my exponents here. So 6 squared is really 36. So this means pi times 36 times h. Now in my calculator, I'm going to do pi times 36. So if you have a pi button, I would suggest you use it. Okay, so I end up getting 113 point, we'll go 097, and then multiply times the height. And now to get the height by itself, I divide both sides by that 113.097. Okay, so if I do that, 0.4 divided by, I get that the height is equal to 2 point, and then I round to the nearest tenth, so it's 3.9, so I'm going to round it to 2.4, and it's height, so I'm measuring it in inches. And there we go. I found the height of my cylinder. Number 9. Find the volume of the composite space figure to the nearest whole number. Composite just means that there's more than one figure. So what I see here is I see something that looks like a box and then another box. So I essentially have 2 prisms that I'm going to find the volume of, and then I'm going to add those 2 prisms together. So we'll call this like the left and the right prism. Okay, to find the volume of a prism, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the length times the width times the height. So let's do the left one first. Length, width, and height. So I know that the length is 8. Now the width would be this box then going to the back, so my width is going to be 5. My height is 3 centimeters. So I'm just going to multiply those all together. 8 times 5 times 3, and when I do that, I get 120 centimeters cubed. Great. So that's the left one. Now let's do the right one. Same formula. Volume equals length times width times height. So my length is 2. Well, yeah, 2. My width is 5, and my height is 6. So I multiply those all together, I get, so this is 30 times 2, it gives me 60 centimeters cubed. Now, to find the total volume, I'm just going to add 120 plus 60 centimeters cubed. And so I end up getting 180 centimeters cubed is the total volume for that figure. All right. Number 10, we're going to find the volume of the pyramid. We're going to leave our answer in exact form. Okay, now I've got myself a pyramid here. To find the volume of a pyramid, I do 1/3 area of the base times the height. Now, the base shape that I see here looks like we've got ourselves a square. So I've got 12 over here, and I've got 12 over here. And so this wasn't a great picture because I didn't show you that it was a square, but if I don't give you that second side, you can assume that those two at the bottom are the exact same, okay? So to find the area of my base, I'm gonna do the length times the width, or base times the height. So my base is 12, my height of just that bottom is also 12. So I've got 12 times 12. So the area of my base is 144. Now I have to find the height. Height is of the entire picture. Now, I've got a problem. Height should be vertical. It should be straight up and down. I don't have that vertical height. However, I'm given this slant height, this one that's slanted on the side. What you can see is I can make myself a right triangle. And I know two of the sides of the right triangle. I know that this side length is 10. I know that this side length is half of the whole base. So since the whole base is 12, this little piece must be a 6. I'm gonna figure out what the height is. Well, in order to do that, I actually have to do the Pythagorean theorem, right? So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So here's what my triangle looks like. I'm trying to figure out my height. I know this is a 6 and I know this is a 10. So I've got 6 squared plus whatever my height is, we'll just put an h for height, equals my hypotenuse squared is 10 squared. Now I go through and I square everything. So 6 squared is 36. 10 squared is 100. To get the h all by itself, I'm going to subtract 36 from both sides. I get that h squared equals 64. And then to get the h by itself, I square root it. I get that the height is 8. Whew, I did all that work. Now I know that the height is 8. So my final step is to put all this together. So volume equals 1/3 times the area of the base is 144 times the height was 8. Now, remember, when it looks like this, you can put them over a 1, and you can multiply straight across on top, and then multiply straight across on the bottom. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to do 1 times 144 times 8. So on the top we get 1,152. And we divide that by 3 times 1 times 1 is just 3. So essentially, multiplying times 1/3 is the same as dividing by 3. And I get that my volume is 384. My unit is feet. And it's cubed for volume. And there we go. Number 11. Find the volume of the cone. Leave answer in terms of pi. That means leave the pi symbol in your final answer. Okay, now this is a cone. The volume of a cone is 1/3 pi r squared h. Now, I do not know the radius, but I do know the diameter. I've got the diameter is 10. That must mean the radius is half of it. So the radius is 5. The height is given to me right here. It's 16. It's vertical. It's straight up and down. So there's my height. So I actually have everything I need. I can just plug it directly into the problem. So I've got 1/3 times pi times my radius squared is 5 squared times my height is 16. I put it all over a 1. Okay. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to reduce a little bit here. I know 5 squared is really 25. So I've got 1/3 times pi times 25 times 16. Now, because I'm leaving it in terms of pi, that means I'm not going to push the pi button. I'm only going to multiply together the numbers that are given to me. So I'm going to multiply together 25 and 16. So I end up getting 400, right? And I still have a pi on the top. And then at the bottom I have divided by 3 times 1 times 1 times 1. That's just a 3. Now to leave it in terms of pi just means we're going to do 400 divided by 3. We're going to get a number there, and then we're going to leave our pi symbol. So if you divide 400 divided by 3, right, we're just doing everything except the pi, you get 133.33. And then I leave the pi with it, and then I label it as inches cubed. And now I'm done. So if it asks you to leave it in terms of pi, that just means do not multiply by that pi. Leave it so it's in your answer at the end. All right, number 12. Find the volume of the cone to the nearest tenth. Okay, so volume formula is 1/3 pi r squared h. I know my radius. My radius is 6. I need my height, and unfortunately, I'm not given my height over here. I'm given the slant height. So just like in the problem about 2 before where I had to do the Pythagorean theorem, I'm gonna have to do it again. So here's my triangle, and I'm gonna find my height. So I've got h squared plus 6 squared, right? So the 2 legs equals my hypotenuse squared, 16 squared. All right, so I'm gonna go through, do the squareds first. So 6 squared is 36. 16 squared is 256. Now, to get the h by itself, I'm gonna subtract 36 on both sides. I get h squared equals 220. And then I square root both of those sides. I get h equals about 14.83. So now I have my height right here, and I have my radius here, so I can plug them into the equation. So I've got volume equals 1/3 times pi times radius squared is 6 squared times my height is 14.83. Put them all over a 1. And then I multiply straight across on the top. I know 6 squared is really 36. So in my calculator, I'm going to multiply pi times 36 times 14.83. 30. Okay, and so on the top I get 1,677.233, and I divide that by 3 times 1 times 1 times 1 gives me 3. So I essentially just divide that by 3. So I'm rounding to the nearest tenth. My final answer is volume equals 559. Tenth is just 1 decimal place, so I'm at 07, so I would round it up to a 1, and then it's centimeters cubed. Now, if you did this and you didn't use the pi button and you just used 3.14 instead, you would get an answer that was very close to mine, and that is okay. But I'd like you to use the pi button if you have the pi button, because it'll give you a more exact answer as we go through here. All right. 13. Find the volume of the figure to the nearest whole number. So I've got 2 different shapes. I've got a pyramid and I've got a prism. So it's 2 different things I have to do. First one I'm going to do is the prism, because that's easy peasy. To find the volume of the prism, especially when it's a box, I just do length times width times height. So for my prism at the bottom, my length is 12, my width is 12, and my height is 10. So I'm just multiplying 12 times 12 times 10. My volume of the prism is 1,440 feet cubed. So that was just one part. Now I'm gonna find the volume of the pyramid on top, and then I'm just gonna add those two together. Okay, to find the volume of a pyramid, I do 1/3 area of the base times the height. Now, the base of the pyramid looks like it's a rectangle or a square here. Okay, it has the same length and width as the one at the bottom, 12 and 12. So my big B is going to be 12 times 12, which gives me 144. So I know my big B. The H, the height, is also given to me. It's a 14, it's right here. So I'm gonna plug that in for my height. So I'm gonna do 1/3 times my big B, area of the base is 144, times my height is 14. Put them all over 1. I'm going to multiply straight across on top, and then I'm going to multiply on the bottom. So 144 times 14 gives me 2016, should be equals. And then I divide that by 3. I get the volume is 672 feet cubed. Now, to find my total volume, I'm going to add the volume of the prism plus the volume of my pyramid. And so I end up getting the total volume is 2,112 feet cubed. And you need to make sure you put feet cubed. If you do not put feet cubed, it will be counted wrong on the assessment. Okay, number 14. The volume of a cylinder is given here. The height of the cylinder is 20. What is the radius of the cylinder? So I'm going to take the information that I know and I'm going to plug it into the volume formula of a cylinder. Now, volume formula of a cylinder is pi r squared h. I know the volume. I'm going to plug that in for the volume. I know the height, and I'm going to plug that in for the height. I need to find the radius. So let's plug in the numbers that we know. I've got 3077.2 is the volume, equals pi r squared times the height is 20. Now, on the right side, I'm going to multiply everything together that is not the r. So on the right side, I'm going to multiply together pi and 20. Okay, if I multiply those together, I get 62.83. That's times r squared that's left over. To get r squared by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by 62.83 because that will get me my r by itself because they'll cancel on this side. So if I put that in my calculator, divided by 62.83, I get 48.977 equals r squared. Now that's great, but I still need to get the r by itself, so the last thing I have to do is take the square root of both of those sides. So if I take the square root of that number, I get my r is equal to 6.998, which is really, my radius is equal to 7 inches. Awesome. All right, last 3 problems on the back here. Get my pens out of the way. All right. Find the volume of a sphere with a diameter of 43.32 centimeters. Round your answer to the nearest hundredth. Okay, so I know how to find the volume of a sphere. The volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. Now, diameter is 43.32. I need the radius. To find the radius, I'm going to take the diameter and divide it by 2. I get my radius is 21.66. Now I'm going to take that, I'm going to plug it in, I'm going to figure out what the volume is. So pi, and my radius is 21.66, and I need to cube that. So the first thing I'm going to do is cube that number. I'm going to get something really, really big. Okay, I'm going to cube this number. I get a very large number, and then I'm going to multiply this by pi and by 4. Okay, then I'm going to take this really, really big number that I get, which is 98.33. Oh my gosh, so big. I'm going to divide it by 3. So my final answer for volume is 42566.1 hundredths. So I'm going to do 0.11. Oh my gosh, centimeters cubed. Again, if you use 3.14 instead of the pi button, your answer is going to be just a little bit different than mine, but not by much, and that's okay. All right, last 2 problems. A basketball with a diameter of 9.5 inches is packaged in a cubic box measuring 9.5 inches on each edge. Determine the volume of the empty space in the box. Okay, so we've got to assume that I've got my cube here. Okay, there's my box, and inside that box I have, I guess really like this. I have a sphere inside my box. Okay, now I need to find the leftover space that's inside. So I'm going to take the volume of the whole prism and I'm going to subtract the volume of the ball that's inside. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find the volume of the big box. Okay? In order to do that, I'm going to do length times width times height. Now, I know it's a cubic box measuring 9.5 inches on each edge. That means this is 9.5, this is 9.5, and so on. So that means for my volume, I'm going to do 9.5 times 9.5 times 9.5. So for the volume of the box, I get 857.375. Now, to find the volume of the sphere or the ball, I'm going to do 4/3 pi r cubed, right? Because that's the volume formula for a sphere. Now, I know the diameter is 9.5. To find the radius, I'm going to take 9.5 and I'm going to divide it by 2. So my radius is 4.75. Now I'm going to plug that into the equation. So I've got 4/3 times pi times radius cubed. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the exponent, so I need to cube this number first. So I get about, this number right here becomes, I'll use a different color actually, about 107.17. I then multiply that times pi times 4. So you can kind of see what I'm doing here. Times pi times 4. On top, I get 1,346.76, and then I'm going to divide that by 3. I get that the volume of the ball equals 448.92. Now, to find the total empty space that's left over, I'm going to take the volume of the box, 857.375, and I'm going to subtract the volume of the ball, 448.92. So when I do that, I get 2. The volume of the empty space is 408.46, and we're talking about inches, and we're cubing it. And there's my final answer. Again, if you use 3.14 instead of the pi symbol, your answer is going to be just a little bit different, but that's okay. It won't be too far off. Okay, and here's our last problem. 3 tennis balls are stacked vertically to the top of a cylindrical container. The radius of each the radius of each ball and the radius of the container is 3 centimeters. Determine the volume of empty space in the container. So it's similar to the one we just did. I'm going to take the volume of the cylinder and I'm going to subtract the volume of the spheres, but there are 3 different spheres, so I need to make sure I multiply my volume of a sphere times 3. First thing I'm going to do is the cylinder. Okay, to find the volume of a cylinder, I do pi r squared h. Now, I know the radius of the cylinder because it's the same radius of the spheres. So my radius is going to be 3. Now, here's the hard part. I go, what the heck is the height of this whole container? Well, let's think about it logically. If the radius is 3 for a sphere, that means radius isn't just left to right, guys. Radius can also be top to middle. So this right here, this little section from the top of the ball to the center is 3. From the middle of the ball to the bottom of the ball is another 3. So one ball is 6 inches tall. I have 3 of them. So this is 6, this is 6, and this is 6. That means my total height is 6 plus 6 plus 6, which is 18 inches. So my height is going to be 18. Now I'm going to plug that into the cylinder equation. Pi, my radius is going to be 3 squared times h. Well, 3 squared really gives me 9. So in my calculator, I'm going to do pi times 9 times 18. I'm going to use the pi button. So I get the volume of my cylinder is 508.94. Now I just have to find the volume of my spheres, or the balls, however you want to look at it. So to find the volume of a sphere, I do 4/3 pi r cubed. Now I already know my radius, because my radius is given to me, it's 3. So let's plug that in. 4/3 times pi times 3 cubed. Well, the first thing I need to do is do 3 cubed because that's an exponent. Order of operations that says I do that first. So if I cube that, I really get 27. So in my calculator, I'm going to do 27. Actually, I can really go from the front to right. 4 times pi times 27. I get 339.29, and then I'm going to divide that by 3. So the volume of one sphere or one ball is 113.09. We'll round that up to 10. Now, that is one sphere. I have 3 spheres. So to find the volume of 3 spheres, I'm going to take the volume of one sphere and multiply it times 3. So the volume of 3 spheres is actually 339.29. Now, I've got the volume of the cylinder. I've got the volume of my 3 spheres. So my last step is I'm going to find the leftover space, the empty space. So I'm going to take the volume of my cylinder and I'm going to subtract the volume of 3 spheres. So I'm going to do 508.94 and I'm going to subtract 339.29. And when I do that, minus 339, I get that the total volume of the empty space is 169.65 centimeters cubed. And there is my final answer. Okay, so now we are completed with our Chapter 11 cross sections and 3D shapes study guide. You're now ready to get yourselves going for your assessment that will come later this week. So I suggest holding on to those because they're going to be very helpful when it comes to your assessment time. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great day.